The studio lights glowed brighter than usual that morning, casting a sharp, almost unforgiving shine across the polished table of the view. The audience buzzed with anticipation, a low hum of curiosity that hinted something unusual was about to unfold. No one could quite explain it, but there was tension in the air, the kind that makes even the most routine conversation feel like it's standing on the edge of something explosive. It began the moment Matt Damon stepped onto the stage. His smile was there, polite and practiced, the kind fans had seen countless times on red carpets and late-night interviews. But today, it didn't quite reach his eyes. There was something guarded in his expression, something cautious. As the applause rolled through the studio, he waved gently, acknowledging the crowd, yet his gaze briefly flickered toward the panel, as if already bracing for what was coming. At the table sat Sunny Hostin, composed yet observant, her posture upright, her eyes sharp with curiosity. She wasn't smiling the way the others were. Not fully, not comfortably. It was subtle, but it was there. And that subtle shift, that tiny crack in the usual cheerful tone, was all it took. The moment Matt took his seat, the energy changed. What happens when a Hollywood icon walks into a conversation he didn't expect? And a question cuts deeper than anyone imagined. Before we dive into this intense moment, make sure you subscribe to The Truth Narrator, hit that like button, and drop your thoughts in the comments, because what you're about to witness isn't just another celebrity interview. It's something much bigger. The introductions began smoothly enough. The hosts exchanged greetings, light laughter filled the room, and Matt spoke about his latest project. His voice was calm, measured. He joked about filming challenges, shared a quick anecdote about working on set, and for a brief moment, everything felt normal. But Sunny was watching, listening, waiting. Her fingers rested lightly on her cue cards, but she wasn't flipping through them like the others. She already knew what she wanted to ask, and when the moment came, she didn't hesitate. "So Matt," she began, her tone polite but carrying an edge that was almost imperceptible, "you've been very vocal about certain global issues lately." Matt nodded, still relaxed. "Yeah, I try to stay informed and use whatever platform I have responsibly." There was a pause, a small one, but it was enough. Sunny leaned slightly forward, her eyes locking onto his. But some critics say that when celebrities speak on serious issues, it can come across as selective. That certain voices are amplified while others are ignored. How do you respond to that? The audience shifted. You could feel it. Chairs creaked. A cough echoed from somewhere in the back. Matt's smile faded, just slightly. "Well," he said carefully, "I think it's important to speak up when you can. No one can address everything, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try." Sunny nodded slowly, but she didn't look convinced. "Of course," she replied. "But don't you think there's a responsibility to be consistent? Especially when your voice reaches millions." The air tightened. Matt adjusted his posture, leaning back slightly now. "I do think consistency matters," he said, his tone still calm, but firmer. "But I also think it's unrealistic to expect any individual to cover every issue equally." A murmur rippled through the audience. Sunny didn't back down. "But isn't that exactly the concern?" she pressed. "That some issues get attention because they're more comfortable to talk about?" The word comfortable hung in the air like a challenge. For the first time, Matt's expression hardened. "I wouldn't say comfortable," he replied. "I'd say accessible. People speak on what they understand, what they're connected to." Sunny tilted her head slightly. "Or what doesn't challenge them too much?" There it was. The shift. The line that changed everything. A few audience members exchanged glances. One woman in the front row leaned forward, eyes wide, sensing what was coming. Matt exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "I think that's a bit unfair," he said. "You're implying that there's some kind of intentional avoidance, and I don't think that's accurate." Sunny didn't blink. "I'm asking the question many people are already thinking," she replied. "Is there a gap between what's said and what's done?" Silence. Real silence. Not the kind filled with background noise or polite laughter. This was different. Heavy. Still. Matt looked down for a brief moment, then back up at her. "And I'm saying," he responded, his voice now carrying a subtle edge, "that it's easy to criticize from the outside without understanding the full picture." The temperature in the room had changed completely. The other hosts shifted in their seats, their smiles gone, replaced with cautious glances. One of them opened her mouth as if to intervene, but then stopped. Because this was no longer a casual conversation. Sunny leaned back slightly now, crossing her arms, not defensively, but deliberately. Then help us understand the full picture, she said. It wasn't a request. It was a challenge. And for a split second, Matt hesitated. Not because he didn't have an answer, but because he realized something. This wasn't just an interview anymore. This was a confrontation. And every word from this point forward would matter. The silence didn't break all at once. It cracked slowly, like glass under pressure. Matt Damon leaned forward this time, his hands clasped together, his calm demeanor still intact. But only just. There was something different in his eyes now. Less guarded. More direct. You want the full picture? He repeated, his voice steady, but carrying a weight that hadn't been there before. All right. The full picture is that people expect public figures to be experts on everything. And when we're not, it becomes a problem. Across the table, Sunny Hostin didn't move. Her gaze remained fixed on him, unshaken. But no one asked you to be an expert on everything, she replied. Just accountable for the influence you choose to use. A few audience members nodded. Others shifted uncomfortably. Matt let out a quiet breath, almost a restrained laugh. But there was no humor in it. Accountability is fair, he said. But the assumption that silence equals indifference, that's where it gets complicated. Sunny's eyebrows lifted slightly. Complicated or convenient? That word again. Convenient. It landed harder this time. The tension in the studio thickened, almost visible now. Even the cameras seemed to linger a second longer on each reaction. The tightness in Matt's jaw, the stillness in Sunny's posture, the unease spreading across the panel. Matt's fingers tapped lightly against the table before he stopped himself. I think what's convenient, he said slowly, choosing each word with precision, is reducing complex human behavior into simple narratives. It makes for good headlines, not necessarily good truth. A quiet echoed from somewhere in the audience. Sunny leaned in again, her voice calm but sharper now. But isn't that exactly what happens when celebrities speak out on selective issues? She countered. A simplified narrative that fits a moment, but doesn't reflect the bigger reality? Matt's eyes narrowed just slightly. You're framing this like it's intentional, he replied. Like there's some calculated decision behind every word, every silence. And you're suggesting there isn't? Sunny shot back, almost instantly. The rhythm of the conversation had changed. Faster now. Tighter. Like two people no longer exploring a topic, but defending positions. Matt shook his head. I'm saying people are human, he said. We respond emotionally, personally, not strategically all the time. Sunny's lips pressed into a thin line before she spoke again. But when you have millions of followers, doesn't personal become powerful, whether you intend it or not? That hit something. Matt paused. Not long, but long enough. The kind of pause that doesn't go unnoticed. You're right, he admitted quietly. It does. The audience leaned in. For a moment, it felt like the tension might ease. Like this acknowledgement could shift the tone, soften the edges. But Sunny didn't let it settle. Then shouldn't that power come with a responsibility to go beyond what's comfortable? She asked. There it was again. Comfort. The word had become a thread running through every exchange, tightening with each repetition. Matt looked directly at her now, no hesitation. I don't think it's about comfort, he said, his voice firmer than before. I think it's about authenticity. Speaking when you have something real to say, not just because you're expected to fill a gap. A ripple of applause broke out, brief, uncertain, quickly fading. Sunny nodded slowly, acknowledging the point, but not conceding. Authenticity matters, she agreed. But so does impact. And sometimes choosing not to speak has an impact too. The words lingered. Matt leaned back in his chair, exhaling through his nose, his patience visibly thinning now. And sometimes speaking without full understanding does more harm than good, he replied. Sunny's head tilted slightly, her expression unreadable. So which is it, she asked. Speak and risk being incomplete, or stay silent and risk being absent. It wasn't just a question. It was a trap, and everyone in the room felt it. Matt ran a hand across his face, a brief break in his composure before he straightened again. That's a false choice, he said. There's a middle ground. Sunny raised an eyebrow. Is there? Yes, Matt said firmly. It's called learning, listening, engaging privately before making public statements. A few audience members clapped, this time louder. But Sunny didn't react to the applause. And how would the public know that's happening? She asked. If it's all private? The applause faded. Matt's expression tightened again. Because not everything needs to be performative, he said. That word, performative, cut through the air like a blade. A visible reaction spread across the panel. One of the hosts shifted uncomfortably, glancing between them. Sunny's eyes sharpened. "Are you suggesting that speaking publicly about issues is performative?" she asked, her tone now unmistakably pointed. "I'm suggesting," Matt replied, his voice steady but now carrying a clear edge, "that sometimes the expectation to speak publicly can turn genuine concern into public performance." The audience reacted instantly, some murmurs of agreement, others of disapproval. Sunny leaned back now, folding her arms again, but this time there was no subtlety in the gesture. "So when people speak out," she said slowly, "you question their motives, but when people stay silent, you ask for understanding." Matt didn't hesitate. "I'm asking for nuance," he said. "And I'm asking for consistency," Sunny shot back. The words collided, and this time neither side softened. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence returned, but it wasn't the same as before. This one was louder, heavier, because now it wasn't just tension. It was conflict. Real, undeniable conflict. Matt looked out toward the audience briefly, then back at Sunny. "You're holding public figures to a standard that doesn't account for reality," he said. Sunny's response came instantly. "And you're asking the public to lower expectations instead of rising to meet them." A sharp intake of breath echoed somewhere in the room. That was it. That was the line. The moment where discussion fully transformed into confrontation. Matt leaned forward again, his voice lower now, but more intense than at any point before. "No," he said. "I'm asking for fairness." Sunny didn't blink. "And I'm asking for accountability." The two words hung between them like opposing forces. Fairness. Accountability. Neither willing to give. Neither willing to bend. And as the cameras zoomed in, capturing every flicker of emotion, every subtle shift in expression, one thing became painfully clear to everyone watching. This wasn't going to end quietly. The air inside the studio felt heavier now, almost suffocating, as if every word spoken had slowly drained the oxygen from the room. No one moved. No one interrupted. Even the usual rhythm of daytime television, the light laughs, the smooth transitions, had completely disappeared. Matt Damon and Sunny Hostin were no longer just exchanging viewpoints. They were locked in it. Matt leaned forward again, closer than before, his voice quieter now, but sharper, more controlled. The kind of tone that forces people to listen. "Let me ask you something," he said, his eyes fixed on Sunny. "Do you think every person with a platform is obligated to speak on every issue, immediately, publicly?" Sunny didn't hesitate. "No," she replied. "But I do believe when someone chooses to speak on certain issues, especially selectively, they open themselves up to questions about why others are left out." Matt gave a slight nod, as if acknowledging the logic, but his expression didn't soften. "And what if those others you're referring to," he said, "are issues that person is still trying to understand, or doesn't feel qualified to speak on yet?" Sunny leaned in, mirroring his intensity. "Then say that," she responded. "Say you're learning. Say you're not there yet. But silence," she paused briefly. "Silence leaves room for interpretation." A murmur rolled through the audience again. Matt's jaw tightened. "And no matter what you say," he replied, "people will still interpret it the way they want." "That doesn't mean you don't try," Sunny shot back. The pace had picked up again. Faster. Sharper. Every sentence now felt like a direct strike. One of the other hosts shifted in her chair, glancing toward the producers off camera, as if silently asking whether someone should step in. But no one did, because this was the moment. Matt exhaled, running a hand through his hair, a rare crack in his otherwise composed demeanor. "You're talking about this like it's simple," he said. "Like there's a clear right and wrong way to handle it." Sunny's expression didn't change. "I'm talking about responsibility," she replied. "And I'm talking about reality," Matt fired back. The words landed harder this time. Louder. A few audience members reacted audibly, small gasps, whispers, the sound of tension reaching a boiling point. Matt leaned back slightly, shaking his head. "You know what the reality is?" he continued. "No matter what you do, speak, stay silent, explain, apologize, someone will always say it's not enough." Sunny didn't miss a beat. "That doesn't mean you stop trying to do what's right. And who decides what's right?" Matt challenged immediately. The question hung in the air. Sunny paused. Not long, but long enough for the shift to be felt. Then she answered, her voice steady. "We all do. Collectively. That's what public discourse is." Matt let out a quiet breath, almost a sigh. But public discourse isn't always fair, he said. It's loud. It's reactive. And sometimes it punishes people for not being perfect. Sunny's eyes softened, just slightly, but her stance didn't change. No one is asking for perfection, she said. They're asking for awareness. And I'm saying awareness takes time, Matt replied. And I'm saying time doesn't excuse absence, Sunny countered. The back and forth was relentless now. No space. No pause. Just impact. Matt leaned forward again, his voice lower, more intense. You're framing this like silence equals absence, he said. But what if silence is part of the process? What if it's listening? Sunny shook her head slightly. Listening is important, she said. But listening without action, without acknowledgement, can feel like indifference. That word hit again. Indifference. Matt's expression hardened. I think that's an assumption, he said. And assumptions can be dangerous. And so can silence, Sunny replied, her tone unwavering. The audience reacted again, this time louder. A mix of applause and murmurs, divided, uncertain. The tension had reached a new level now. It wasn't just about the topic anymore. It was personal. Matt glanced briefly toward the other hosts, then back at Sunny. You're asking people to constantly prove something, he said. To show up in a very specific way, or risk being judged. Sunny met his gaze. No, she said quietly. I'm asking people to recognize the weight of their voice. There was a pause. A real one this time. Not forced. Not tense. Just heavy. Matt looked at her for a long moment, his expression shifting. Less defensive now, more reflective. And what if they do recognize it, he said slowly, but they're still figuring out how to use it responsibly? Sunny didn't answer right away. For the first time since this began, she hesitated. The room felt it. The shift. The smallest crack in the rhythm. Then she spoke, her voice softer now, but still firm. Then they should be honest about that, she said. Because people aren't just listening to what you say, they're watching what you do. Matt nodded slightly. A small gesture, but meaningful. I can agree with that, he admitted. The tension didn't disappear, but it changed. Subtly, like a storm that hadn't passed, but had paused. For a brief moment, it felt like they had found a middle ground. But then, Sunny added one more line. Quiet, measured, but sharp enough to cut through everything that had just settled. And honesty also means acknowledging when you've fallen short. The words landed. Hard. Matt's eyes flickered, just for a second. There it was. The moment. Not loud, not explosive, but deeper than anything that had come before. Because now it wasn't just about general ideas. It was about him. Specifically. Directly. The audience went completely still. No murmurs. No whispers. Nothing. Matt straightened slightly in his chair, his expression tightening again. Not with anger this time, but something more controlled. More deliberate. You're assuming that I have, he said. Sunny held his gaze. I'm asking if you have, she replied. And just like that, the conversation crossed a line it hadn't crossed before. This wasn't about people anymore. Or celebrities. Or public figures. This was about Matt Damon. And whether he would answer, or push back, was about to define everything that happened next. For a moment, time itself seemed to pause inside the studio of The View. Every camera was locked in. Every eye was fixed. And at the center of it all sat Matt Damon, facing a question that no longer allowed distance, generalization, or deflection. I'm asking if you have. Sunny Hostin's words didn't echo, but they lingered. Heavy. Unavoidable. Matt didn't respond immediately. For the first time since the conversation began, he looked still. Not defensive. Not reactive. Just still. His fingers rested against the table, unmoving now, his usual composure replaced by something quieter, something more internal. The audience held its breath. Then finally he spoke. I think everyone has, he said, his voice lower than before, stripped of the sharp edge it carried just moments ago. If you're being honest, you have to admit that. The shift was immediate. Subtle, but powerful. Sunny's posture softened just slightly, though her eyes never left him. Matt continued, this time without interruption. There have been times, he admitted, where I could have said more or said something sooner. And maybe I didn't. Not because I didn't care, but because I wasn't sure I understood enough to speak responsibly. A murmur rolled through the audience, not of tension this time, but recognition. Real. Human. Sunny nodded slowly. And do you think, she asked carefully, that acknowledging that publicly makes a difference? Matt didn't hesitate this time. Yes, he said. I do. The simplicity of the answer carried more weight than anything he had said before. Because it wasn't a defense. It wasn't an argument. It was an admission. And in that moment, the entire tone of the room shifted. But not everyone saw it the same way. A ripple of mixed reactions spread through the audience, some nodding in agreement, others exchanging skeptical glances. The tension hadn't disappeared. It had evolved. Sunny leaned back slightly, her arms no longer crossed, her voice measured. Then why does it feel, she said, like those acknowledgments only come when the pressure is already there? There it was. The final push. The last question that would decide how this moment would be remembered. Matt inhaled slowly, his gaze dropping for just a second before returning to her. Because sometimes, he said, it takes being challenged to reflect in a deeper way. The honesty in his tone was undeniable. No deflection. No avoidance. Just truth, at least his version of it. The audience responded, this time with scattered applause, cautious but genuine. Sunny watched him for a long moment, then gave a small nod. I can respect that, she said. And just like that, the storm broke. Not with an explosion, but with a release. A collective exhale filled the studio, tension draining from shoulders, expressions softening across the panel. One of the other hosts finally leaned in, attempting to guide the conversation forward, her voice lighter, almost relieved. Well, this is definitely one of the most honest conversations we've had in a while, she said with a nervous laugh. The audience chuckled, the sound restoring a sense of normalcy that had been absent for far too long. But even as the conversation moved on, touching briefly on Matt's upcoming projects, returning to safer territory, the moment lingered. Because everyone in that room knew. They had witnessed something different, something real. And outside the studio, things were already beginning to explode. Within minutes of the episode airing, clips of the exchange flooded social media. Short, intense segments of Matt Damon and Sunny Hostin locked in that verbal standoff spread like wildfire. Headlines began to form almost instantly. Matt Damon put on the spot live on TV. Sunny Hostin challenges Hollywood accountability. Awkward or honest? Fans divided over heated exchange. The internet did what it always does. It chose sides. Some praised Sunny, calling her questions necessary, bold, long overdue. Others defended Matt, arguing that he handled the situation with honesty and composure under pressure. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Debates stretched across platforms. Every word, every pause, every expression from that interview was dissected, analyzed, replayed. And at the center of it all, that moment, that question, that answer. Back in the studio, as the show wrapped, Matt stood up, adjusting his jacket, his expression calm again, but different from when he had first walked in. Less guarded, more aware. Sunny gathered her notes, glancing briefly in his direction. There was no hostility in her look now, just a quiet understanding. No winner, no loser, just a conversation that had gone further than anyone expected. And as the cameras cut, the applause filled the room once more. Louder this time, not out of routine, but out of something earned. Because what unfolded on that stage wasn't just another celebrity interview. It was a moment that blurred the line between performance and reality, between expectation and truth. And whether people agreed with it or not, they felt it. Now it's your turn. What do you think about this intense exchange between Matt Damon and Sunny Hostin on The View? Was Sunny right to push harder? Or did Matt handle the pressure with honesty and dignity? Drop your opinion in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want more cinematic, explosive stories like this, make sure to subscribe to The Truth Narrator, like this video, and share it with someone who loves real, intense moments from the world of celebrities. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We pull you inside them.